I want to have intellectual humility.
What lessons from previous periods of education reform informed educators' decision in Detroit about how to structure schooling between 1930 and 1968? Yeah, so some of the reforms that occurred prior would have been tracking students. People would have, before 1930, United States of America, schools were focused on creating good citizens. You wanted it was a new nation. So we had a new nation and we needed citizens to be proud of the United States, wanting to contribute to the United States growth, grow the culture, how to be a proud American. And there was reforms that took place that changed the curriculum a bit from just being proud Americans to what type of industries Americans could serve it. What would benefit the student most that we could teach them in this day and age? And I think prior to 1930, you had the Great Depression and people were looking for service employees. You were looking at the majority of the population, and the majority of the population were going into industrial type jobs at that time. They would be going into factories, so you need skilled labor. And they focused on what the needs of the economy were at that time and how it would benefit, what curriculum would match the economy, the state of the economy at that time. So when they look back on it and seeing they needed an industrial workforce, they focused more on engineering and added math to the curriculum. What was our second question? I've been looking at YouTube, looking at your comments. Please keep it up. How might the histories of these high schools influence the way that we understand education policy issues in the present? In today's schools and the issues of policy, it seems like today you see a big focus on updating curriculum to be sensitive to different populations in our country. You also see, especially on the West Coast, you have a further separation of church and schools because the Constitution upholds the separation of church and government. So in our school system, people are trying to separate religion from our education that our kids are receiving from others. And if you look back on the past and you see what happened in Detroit, let's look at Detroit in that period between 1930 and 1968. You had a high school that was predominantly white, and it was one of the most notable high schools in the city of Detroit. This was Northside High School. And what happened was that the demographics of the neighborhood changed. You had a larger African American population, I believe up to 40% at that time, moved into that community and started attending that high school. And slowly the curriculum at that high school started to be downgraded because the focus was no longer on math, science, and any skills that would increase the likelihood of the student population getting into higher education or tracking them towards college. They started focusing, the administration of that school started focusing on the social aspects of education and how the high school could best serve the needs of that community. And what they chose and what they assumed were the needs of that community was to hold students to lower standards, pacify students, and just pass them grade after grade after grade, regardless of if they passed or not. And in the meantime, you had a neighboring school in a predominantly white area still tracking students towards college, but giving them tougher tests, teaching them harder curriculum. And if you compare that to in today's school system, you see debate. What is the need of teaching the arts? What is the need of teaching liberal studies? What is the need of teaching anything that's not science related? The economy evolves into we no longer have that large manufacturing workforce. We now have a service sector economy to where the service sector dominates at the bottom of the totem pole, but we're not going to school to train service workers. We want individuals to get into higher education, even though we have a shrinking middle class. So if we look at how it influences decisions today, schools have to be aware that changing curriculum and just passing students could harm the students' chances of going into higher education and eventually avoiding those service sector jobs, which is the outcome of a lot of high school graduates are just going to go into working for retail in a grocery store, fast food. Maybe they'll become managers one day, but cleaning services, manual labor, serving other people. So if we go to just a pacifist, like pacifying the students in our high schools today, we can look back on history and see that that might not necessarily be the best track for us as a nation and for our people individually, because if we teach people the skills they need to go to prepare for college and to go into the future, which is artificial intelligence, social media, more of a digital workforce to where we need to understand how these tools work and we need to understand how to operate these digital tools to accomplish the same work. And eventually, if we get replaced by artificial intelligence and robots in the future, which a lot of people have, the automobile industry went through that early on, but as we continue to replace humans with robots in the service sector, we're going to have to evolve our skills. And I think going into higher education is best going to prepare us for that. But if you look at the high school level, how do we prepare for that? You can look at World War II when they addressed it, when back in Detroit, they adjusted the educational system to service, getting people ready for factory work. And
Please
so
don't forget to like, subscribe, comment below, and turn on the notification bell.